Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 322 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Jonathon. Jonathon is Quincy's dad. And I first heard from Jonathon when he emailed me about a book he had written. So I was excited to read that book. The book is called Indigo, The Color of Grief, and it is simply beautiful. It is a quite short book, really half poem and half prose, and it doesn't follow a lot of the normal grammatical rules. And I think that's a beautiful analogy for our grief, because in our grief, we really don't follow the rules either, do we? We're kind of making up our own rules as we go along. So we talk about that quite a bit in the interview. We also talk about love and changing faith and community and just a lot of the beautiful things that I like to focus on in this podcast. So I know that all of you will really appreciate this conversation. I also have a sponsor for this episode. This is the last sponsor that I have as of right now. So hopefully I'll be getting some more, but I'm excited to announce this week's sponsor. So this week's sponsor is Candy in honor of Asher. If you remember, Candy told Asher's story way back in episode number 252. I've gotten to know Candy quite well over the years, and I tell you, I just love her with all my heart. And I feel like I know Asher too. I know that he loved dinosaurs. I know he was a bit of their wild child tag along, and I know he brought so much life to their home, and they miss him so, so much. So that is the thing that I love about this podcast. I love that we can get to know these kids. And, even if they had a short little life like Asher did, a lot of people, thousands of people from all over the world feel like they know him. And that's just the beautiful thing that I love about the podcast. So if you want to share your story on the podcast, please feel free to email me at marcy@andysmom.com. Also, if you just want to donate and give a little blurb about your child and donate and sponsor an episode, you can do that too. So again, you can go to the website, andysmom.com, and go to the donate page. And there you can write a little bit about your child and give an episode donation of $125 or really any amount that you want. I just want to thank you all again so much for these donations. They are just warming my heart so much and are going to allow me to be able to do a few more things and maybe try to go on a few more platforms and see if we can reach more people and have even more people know about the stories of our kids and just know that they are not alone in this grief journey. Right now, I just want you to sit back and enjoy listening to Jonathon, Quincy's dad. Thank you so much, Jonathon, for agreeing to come on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I apologize that I'm in the vehicle instead of home, but technology seems to be working, so we'll be all right.
Yeah, I think technology is working okay, so I think we will be totally fine. So I just want to start out by just having you tell me all about your daughter, Quincy.
Sure. Happy to. Quincy was just a crazy, full of life. Sometimes I say she was undomesticated. She was just wild and fun and laughed and sang, played soccer, loved to go on trips, loved the mountains. Had been to Haiti. That was a real formative trip for her. She was a nursing major. She was a RA in college. So she lived a very full life, for sure.
So she was your firstborn, right?
That's right. She's our oldest, our only daughter, and she stepped into that role. Like, we didn't assign it, but she stepped into it and definitely directed traffic at home, both emotionally and physically at times. So she was a lot of fun. She was a handful.
Yeah. It's so funny because so much of it just sort of resonates with me. So my family is girl, boy, boy as well, just as yours is. So, that family of five, it's a unique in some ways, right? I feel
Yeah.
like once you move to five, things change a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like the old saying, we're not man to man anymore. You're going to a zone defense, and
Yep, exactly.
that's exactly the way it feels. It's basically out of control at that point, but it sure was a lot of fun.
I always felt like, when you go to a restaurant, you can't just sit at a regular booth. You have to make sure you got a special table. I don't know. They're just unique things about being that family of five.
Well, I mean, even to get to the restaurant with a family of five was challenging.
That's true. That's true. It's so funny because they don't make a lot of like tables for your house for five. And so we had a table always for six. And so at our table, Andy, my middle one who passed away, would thinking we needed another kid for that spot at the table. And I always just said, oh, that's the spot for Jesus. Jesus can be in the sixth chair at the table. Because we were going to be done at five. And then we took in a foster son from Guatemala, and that
Oh,
made
wow.
Andy very happy because now the table was full. So now we had someone for our
Yeah.
sixth spot at the table.
Yeah. And now you're back to five, so that's heartbreaking.
I know. It is. It is heartbreaking to have that chair open, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk a little bit more about her if we can. So she was in college, you said. She'd gone off to college.
That's right.
So she wasn't living at home anymore, or she was still?
No, she was in college. She was a junior, so this would have been halfway through her junior year. It was the third year of nursing school, and the third year nursing is very intense.
Yeah.
And you know more about that than I do, but
Was she starting to do clinical things too then?
she wasn't into the clinicals.
Third year, was that going to be for?
It might have been coming that second semester. I'm not sure. So she died on New Year's Day, so it would have been mid-semester.
Yeah.
But I remember we had a really nice, it was fairly intense, but a really nice conversation at the end of that semester, and just her, struggling with, she was always good at grades. She wasn't like the best, but she always did really well. So it was really, really pushing her about it. I'm really thankful for that conversation. It was a conversation where I got to encourage her and be able to empower her as much as I could. Not that she needed a lot of that, but in that particular moment she did. So I'm thankful for that. But nursing student played soccer her whole life.
Uh-huh.
And so there's very, very, very active. We were always on the go. And she was a musician. So if she wasn't studying, when she did come home, she was up in the room playing the guitar, singing. So just a lot of volume with Quincy.
Uh-huh. It's funny. It reminds me a little bit of my Andy. He sang for the Grand Rapids Choir Men and Boys, and he was
Oh,
a
wow.
soccer player, had just made the high school team and
Okay.
was so excited about that to start. So I think some of their loves were very similar from our two kids.
Interesting. Well, that's cool.
So do you want to talk about what happened with Quincy now, about Quincy's accident a little bit?
Yeah, well, it was New Year's Day. We were actually at my mother-in-law's farmhouse. Quincy had a boyfriend, so this would have been the first time she was going to go spend the night and meet a boyfriend's fandom.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was about 2 hours west of her.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah, a big deal. She was nervous and giddy, very excited, but I noticed that it took longer for her to leave the house than I anticipated. And I finally realized it was probably because she was a little bit nervous. So we had fun with that. But unfortunately, there was just a massive ice storm that moved in. We live in Kansas City, but at the time, like I said, my mother-in-law's farm was in southeast Kansas. And yeah, just countless sized sheets of ice moved in a matter of hours. So about the time we were supposed to get the phone call, we didn't get the phone call, which of course makes parents nervous.
Yeah.
And then the anxiety set in. I don't know anything obviously you've ever experienced. And then it was about wasn't really till about 9 o'clock at night that we got confirmation because a highway patrolman came to see us. And of course, at that point, you know that nothing good happens when highway patrolmen come to see families on New Year's Day at 9 o'clock at night. So
No.
we knew it was coming. We were hoping it wasn't, but that was the reality.
Because did you have a ability to get a hold of her boyfriend and know that she hadn't gotten there and things like that? Like you had talked in the day, or you didn't have any contact information?
Yeah, we did. We had called him, and of course they hadn't heard anything. And then we started following all the highway departments, and we finally got a hold of someone who just couldn't tell us the information. But
Yeah.
we knew based on the conversation that there had been an accident, and that then at that point a patrolman was coming to see us. So yeah, there were 4 or 5 hours there where it felt like pushing a gas pedal and a brake pedal at the same time because you're hoping beyond hope, but you also recognize all the signs. None of them are good. Also trying to prepare yourself.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy that you think you can try to prepare yourself a little bit, but you really can't as much as you think you can, right?
Well, I think in some ways, maybe you can. You have a certain kind of, I'm speaking now metaphorically, but maybe a certain kind of like psychospiritual adrenaline that kicks in. And I think me as a dad and my wife, my mother-in-law, my 2 boys, I was immediately trying, I recognize looking backwards, I was immediately trying to, soften the blow as much as I could and to be whatever I was supposed to be at that moment.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways, there are some things maybe you can do, but in other ways, you're absolutely right. There's no way to prepare for the literal loss, the existential loss, the psycho-spiritual, emotional, biological
Yeah.
loss. It's overdone.
Because how old were your boys at the time?
Yeah, so our oldest son was at the time 17,
Uh-huh.
and when our youngest was 12, almost 13.
Okay. So talk about then your grief journey and what that's been like. So this has been now 10 years, you said.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so hard to wrap your head around.
Right. It's funny the 10 years because last year, leading up to that 10 years, and I don't know, there's not necessarily anything special with the number 10. It's just because it's a legal number, it's something you'd think about even normally.
Mm-hmm.
It's so crazy. Just a couple of days ago, my wife and I were talking about how we're coming up on the holidays. And I still think about it all the time. I just don't think about the number as much as I did once. But yeah, the grief journey's been really quite unbelievable. It's affected everything about us. Again, biologically, on a microbiome level, I've learned we're different. Theologically, I'm different. I was a pastor. I have been a pastor most of my life. That loss shaped and affected me so much that, among other things, my theology started to shift, which I'm really grateful for. It's not like I lost God. I don't even think that's possible, but I definitely lost him in all perspective. As that shifted, then that's a whole nother story about kind of my former way of life, that whole ecclesiological setting jettisoned me out. So that's been a huge thing because that affected was a job. I mean, affected my livelihood. Psychologically, you're immediately like, well, who am I without this person? Because we're all constituted, all the people around us,
Mm-hmm.
very real ways. And so then when that person is eliminated, you run feathered, you feel kind of lost in the spot. So the grief journey has been intense, and there's been a lot of really beautiful things that have happened. But also, obviously, incredibly complex and hard.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so that sounds like everything changed so much in your life, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, everything did, and one of the ways that was helpful for me to kind of process all of it and continue to process it is writing. So
Yeah.
I was dabbling with being a writer before this happened, but pretty quickly landed on that exercise as a way to kind of control not a like a lower C control. You can't control anything, but it's just kind of a way to finesse my emotions and also what I was feeling and thinking about my different, theological paradigms, psychological, who I was, who God is, what what life is, all these existential things.
Uh-huh.
And it became an important way to, I don't know what it is, just moving words around on a screen for me. It's almost like I'm moving stuff around inside of me, trying to get stuff to line up in a relatively healthy way. So I started writing, and other people were kind of benefiting from that. And then I just kind of kept going.
Yeah.
Wound up getting a dissertation and written more and more, and just kind of turned into a thing.
So you've written several books now?
That's right.
I've read your one book for sure. So what all kinds of writing are you doing? Because it's not all about grief.
No, it's not all about grief, but you'll understand. Like often when I speak, even I'll say things like, I can talk about other things besides grief, but the truth is, grief is the only thing I talk about
Yeah.
because it influences and catalyzes so much of all the other things. But what my work has been in theological work. I've just gone deeper in those areas and tried to come up with I needed to, and what I wound up in is coming up with a more expansive kind of idea and understanding of love and who I think God might be and what's going on. I just needed a bigger space kind of hold the attention. And religion does a lot of good things, and often when it's not healthy religion, the bad thing it does is it kind of requires you to fit within a particular box. And sometimes I'll call it the standard absurdity. It's to pretend as if about all the rest of us. And I needed to find spaces where it was okay to entertain the questions. I think that's a healthier space, and the only thing that's really going to help humanity evolve to wherever the nuclear is. So a lot of my work has been working on that.
That is really fascinating to me. I feel like my faith and my relationship with God has changed so much in my grief. No question.
How can it not?
And I feel like in general, my faith is so much more real. Like, I mean, I can get angry with God and just be angry, and that's okay. I mean, there are things that I say that I think other Christians will probably think that I'm going to hell for sure, but I just feel like in general, my relationship is a lot more real,
Sure.
And when somebody says to me, oh, Marcy, Andy dying was part of God's plan and all this wonderful stuff has happened. And I can say, I know that, okay, but for me, God's plan really sucks right now. Okay? And I don't feel bad about saying it. But the people that I say it to, I have to be really careful because there are certain people that will get very, very upset with me when they hear me say that. I'm very fearful for my soul and what is going on. But I feel like in general, I can say to God, this plan really is awful right now. This feels terrible. And this may be the plan. I understand that's the plan, but I don't have to like it. And good things can come of it and amazing things. And I feel like obviously this podcast, and I have a lot of great relationships with people that I would have never known. And I feel like there has been Andy and I kind of doing this together, trying to help people together. And that's been beautiful. But I can still not like it. And it's, I can be a kicking, screaming toddler. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think.
So anyway, I feel like that's changed with me a lot. So I don't know if you can kind of resonate with that a little bit or at least understand it.
I definitely understand it. And one of the things I would say is that what I heard you say was you're bidding yourself freedom and the autonomy to respond. However, your lived experience does you to respond. And I think that's incredibly healthy and important. And if God is a God of love, it's exactly the consequence.
Yeah.
Now, if God is not a God of love, which I kind of tend to think Americanized Christianity is a little bit confused about this. If God is not a God of love, but rather a God that primarily operates from power with love thrown in from time to time, it's highly problematic. Because then it puts you at odds
Yes.
with this power God who has the one plan that kind of has been predetermined for all eternity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that is in alignment with love. I think love is risk and with vulnerability involved. And as a parent and this is our topic is there's no bigger example. You risk when you have a child in a lot of different ways. You know, if we're like that, I think it's reasonable to suggest that our heavenly parent was also like that. And so I think there's multiple ways that life can go. There's a multiplicity of reasons as to why any one thing happens. I don't think God's up in heaven pushing buttons, pulling others.
Yeah.
I think chaos and complexity, all those things are actually real. And that somehow the divine is infused in the middle of all that and can help make good things happen. But I don't think God has caused it. You're right. That will put you at odds.
I know. And that, I mean, I just get emotional even thinking about that, because there's so much to, if you think of God just pushing a bunch of buttons and everybody's just, that he's just in charge of all of this, then then God made that car crash into us. And God, God could have stopped it, but he didn't.
Right.
And then
Right.
that feels like betrayal, right? And I get
Yeah.
I get emotional, I just cry about it, get emotional about it. And I had many, many, many conversations with my pastor after the accident. And one of the most comforting things he said to me was, when you were sitting on the side of the road that day, God was crying with you.
Yeah.
Right? He was there welcoming Andy to heaven, I know, but he was also crying with me. He wasn't up there pushing the button like, yep, it's done, in this all-powerful, just sort of mean, because it feels callous if it's like that. But if I think that he was crying beside me, well, that's totally different. And that I can have faith in a God who's going to cry with me. It's a little harder to have faith in a God who just, pushed a button and let your kid die or whatever, or made your kid die, even worse.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I think is challenging for me. So that's why it's just beautiful just thinking of God's lovingness and God's holding me when I needed to be held, right?
I think so.
It's like that old Footprints in the Sand poem, right? From forever ago.
Yeah, and there's a variety of different ways to unpack it, but one way is to think of it in terms of rather than we have this love born of power, it's power born of love. And the power that's born out of love is relational. It's never disconnected. It's never separate from us. It's with us all the time. And it comes packaged. This is the best. This is like, going on 11 years of thinking about this, like the best I can, and reading the best I can, and studying the best I can. Love comes packaged with some limitations because it's love. Love can't control people and can't control things. And so a God who can control, at some point, you would have to give up some measure of love. So for me, I've just had to try to, and I'm not saying I have it perfect.
Right.
I'm not saying people have to believe that. But for me, it was really important to double click on that extensively until I had a better understanding of all that. And I just think there's probably some confusion. There's just not a lot of clarity. There's not a lot of Americanized theological systems that are encouraging people to dive into that, because ultimately, like what you were saying was true. People will go, well, God has a plan, or everything happens for a reason. And I don't necessarily think that's true. And I think it contradicts love.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in it for the love part.
Right. And I feel like my relationship with God is so much more real and genuine and honest than it ever was before.
That's great.
It's hard to even explain it, I think, to people who don't understand
Probably.
that. Because I just don't think I don't know. It's why I have a hard time going. Like, there was Bible study that I was in forever and ever and ever, and I stopped going because I just couldn't relate in the same way anymore. It just was totally different. It just doesn't fit right with how I feel now. And maybe someday it will again, and whatever, but it's just different. Everything's just different.
That's right. It's true.
Yeah. So I want you to talk about the book that you wrote, because that's what kind of brought us together, is you writing this beautiful book, which I really love. It's amazing. I wrote to you and I used the term that had been used in one of my podcasts years and years ago, that a mom came on and said her daughter would describe things as excruciatingly beautiful. And those are the words I would use for your book. I think it is just beautiful, but it shows that pain too. It's just so beautiful.
Thank you.
It's really more of a poem even than in some ways a story, than a prose story. So talk about your book, maybe how that came to be and that style.
Yeah, so the book's called Indigo, the Color of Grief. And even the word indigo, it's an evocative word. Is it blue? Is it purple? I don't know. Is it going from dark to light, from light to dark? It's hard to know. And so that kind of ambiguity and the murkiness of it kind of gives a backdrop, to the whole movement of what I think grief is. I also think it's interesting, indigo, someone pointed this out to me, might have been in a podcast, like indigo is a part of the color spectrum, but it's not a word we use a lot. And so then I was thinking, oh, that's interesting. Like this stuff that I'm talking about is all present all the time. We don't talk about it as much. And so that's kind of like indigo too. So, and also the word indigo, it makes a little bit of an Easter egg hunt. It makes one appearance in the book. So I found that all to be interesting. But yes, the writing, what I was trying to do was to say as much as I could with as few words as I could.
Uh-huh.
And it's probably no coincidence that, there was a couple 100,000 words written in book form, and probably a few 100,000 or a million more either preaching or leading groups or, speaking at different events that all took place before Indigo, because in some ways I kind of had to, I don't know, clear out the neurological, spiritual, emotional connections with all those words enough to gain some clarity on what I think might be happening, so that each and every word really kind of meant a lot. So yeah, the book's only 12,000 words, but it's spaced out. There's a lot of white space because I'm trying to both give, actual room for the reader to process what they're feeling, but also, symbolically it makes sense too. You're not just on that page, but in life, I think white space. I think the stuff that's not there often says as much about what's going on as the stuff that is there.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that was kind of important for me in the way I wrote it. It helped me. It seems like it's translating well to readers too. They're kind of picking up on some of that prosaic, slightly poetic way that it's presented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's very unique. You don't use any capitalization. You don't use any punctuation.
No.
It's all just very free form.
Yeah, there is a bit of a form I did kind of create as it went along, but even
Oh, yeah.
that, I think it's really interesting. I didn't recognize at first, but I did kind of about halfway through the project. I realized, I'm in some ways, like I'm getting away with the old rules and I'm making up my own rules.
Uh-huh.
And I think like that's such a parallel to the grief journey. Like, you realize the old way that I used to live, for good or for bad, it's not always bad. It's just different. You can't operate out of some of those same structures that you used to. And so I think that's interesting how that it turned out. The writing turned out like that too. It was kind of like, that part's done and I've got to make up my own thing. And you do. It's not like it's not so free form that nothing makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
But it is your own form that you wind up creating. And I think there's something really interesting about that whole process.
Yeah, I agree that is definitely a great, great parallel to what grief is, because you do feel like you're just making your own way. Like there's no formula. You feel like there's supposed to be this formula you're supposed to follow. You think about the 5 stages of grief and all of that business, which is really not true. But people feel like there should be this pattern that you follow, and you should have. I know I felt that way. I felt like I don't know what to do Like, I guess maybe I go to this grief group. I don't really know. Somebody needs to tell me what to do
Yeah.
in this. But then there is no, you just have to do it on your own. And everybody's grief journey looks so, so unique. So I love that analogy about just kind of making up your own rules in a way, because that is what we all do every day.
I think so.
And I feel like that's so much of my life now is making up my own
Right.
rules.
Well, and also it's interesting whether we're talking theology or politics or economics or, just social structures. The reality is all this stuff is kind of made up anyhow. Like there's no real, like everything is fluid and everything is contextual. And we all as a society in smaller and bigger ways kind of agree consciously, subconsciously on definitions of words, definitions of concepts, definitions of the way we want our world to be. Sometimes, again, more directly, sometimes indirectly. So I find that interesting too. And that is one of the things that grief reminds you of over and over and over. And that is that nothing really is in control. Like it's a really wild cosmos we live in. And again, I think if God is love, love itself is not controllable, nor is it controlling. I think it brings a measure of things that help you build on stuff, and you got to have that for sure. But yeah, I find that interesting. We're making up our own way, but the truth is we've always been making up our own way. Grief just kind of peels the masks off and allows you to be honest about what's going on. And I really appreciate that about the grief journey.
Well, and I appreciate you saying too that, we do have these kind of rules that we make up societally that we think about, and that things should follow a certain pattern. And I feel like with child loss especially, then that gets thrown out the window because that's not supposed to happen, right? We're not supposed to bury our children. They are supposed to bury us. And so I think that throws a wrench in it very early on for all of us that have to live in this reality that, for example, my daughter's in college and she is in a college class, and I don't know, she's studying linguistics and Spanish, so I don't know which class it was in, but somehow their assignment was to read some poems, and the poems were written by a woman whose nephew died by suicide. And obviously this was a more painful assignment, I think, for her than for other people because they didn't have that background.
Sure, yeah.
She said, I kept reading this poem and I kept thinking that it was you writing it, that it was me, because, she had brought her nephew into her home and was raising him, and he died. And the professor was talking then about how death is associated with the elderly and all this life cycle kind of thing, and how this would be unique. And my daughter actually raised her hand in the class, or said to him afterwards, I'm not sure. She said, that's funny because she's never had an older person in her life die. Like her grandparents haven't died. Like her grandparents that died before she was born. She's not had that normal experience of losing an older person. The only person that she's mourned is her 14-year-old brother when she was 16. So it's funny because and the professor said, wow, you're the only person that has ever said that to me, that this completely resonates with exactly how their view of death is, because everyone else, this was a new, unique experience. So it's just, I don't know, it makes it very, very interesting because I think we do have so many different takes depending on what our life experience is. And obviously my daughter's life experience different than mine now.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, as a parent is another thing to potentially grieve.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
It's one thing to lose a child, but and I talk about that obviously a little bit in Indigo. It's another thing to grieve the loss that your children have because they don't have that other person, and to recognize, oh, good Lord, they're different people now than they were. For good or for bad, that's just the way it is, and that's challenging.
So my parents both got cancer when I was in high school. My mom died when I was in college. So I was always the girl whose parents had cancer all through high school, right? And death was no stranger to me when I was young. And I so didn't want that for my kids. I just did not want, I wanted them to be normal and have this normal childhood that did not look like it had death in it. And then, of course, that is not what they got. And that really did break my heart, because I just so want something better for your kids than you had. And then to have them have that, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to watch them grieve. It's hard to watch them struggle, especially when I kind of knew what it was like to be that kid that everyone looked at like, oh, her parents both have cancer. And then it was, oh, that's the one whose brother died. They had to live that. So it's challenging.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I also wanted to go back and talk a little bit about that your book and all the white space that you left in there, because that brings up another point that I run a support group too, and we were talking about having our dive team, our team around us, and the people that support us. And one of the women was talking about how she has this wonderful woman who supports her, but she just is so uncomfortable in the silence, and then she just talks and talks and talks. And your blank space analogy reminds me so much of how we as grieving people sometimes just need to be in the silence. So we talked about how you can try to help people feel comfortable in the silence, but it's hard.
Yeah, and in this case, are you talking about, is this a person who has had loss, or it's someone trying? Yeah.
So she's had loss. She's lost her son, and her friend is trying to come in and help her, but her friend just keeps talking because she's uncomfortable in the silence that my friend needs.
Yeah, well, her friend needs to give her Indigo book and have her read a couple of those chapters specifically about things maybe not to do, though I don't list it that way. I'm indirectly trying to say it that way. But yeah, I was really surprised in all my conversations, not only about grief, but also theology over the years. I've recognized many times, though, at some point, the intensity of my problems were just reminding the other person of the intensity of their problems. And the intensity of their problems had, again, for good or for bad, caused them to create certain kind of patterns that they were repeating to cope with all the violence. And so if I chose to go a different route, it really would cause them a lot of concern. And I mentioned that earlier, like concern for my soul and concern for lots of different things. And that's a very interesting, almost like a meta thing to be going on. You're having a conversation with someone. They're trying to help you. Well, ostensibly, they come to help you. But you recognize pretty quickly into it that you're now not only dealing with reality, you happen to deal with the issues of this other person. And for sure, one of those things is some people just cannot, they can't sit in the silence. They have to offer answers. They have to try to fix it. They have to try to fill that gap. And, you got to have compassion for those people, because you recognize they're probably just coping. It's a coping mechanism. It's the way they're kind of dealt with their own issues. Mm-hmm. But as people who are then in the middle of grief, any listeners listening to this, I would want to empower them and say, okay, if you have people like that in your life, it's okay for you to, you don't have to think about it, but it's okay for you to set some boundaries and just, first of all, it's okay to talk to that person about it, and just say, hey, can we stop for a second? Because, and then you just lay it out. You try to express the way you're making me feel by offering all these words. It's overwhelming. I can't process it. You're making me feel like there's an answer. There's not an answer here. So you could do that. But secondly, you could also set some boundaries and just choose not to be around certain people. That's okay too.
Yeah. And that's a tough decision to make.
It is.
Because that's a decision I've definitely had to make with different people, whether to talk to them about what I need right now, which is so hard. I mean, and it's not fair. And no, it's not fair that we as grieving people have to teach other people, but we do. We do, because I mean, only I am the expert in my grief. It's just me. So, and maybe I don't really know what I need, but in the moment, you kind of know what you need. So, being able to lay that out and express that, or alternatively, if you can't do that, like you said, you just close the door a little bit. You just, know what you need to do and what boundaries you need to set. And maybe that person is going to take a little more of a back seat in your life than he or she did before.
Mm, that's right. I say in the book, I guess I'll just set it up this way. What I wish people let me know is, and again, I think this is theological as well as interpersonal, is we don't really need solutions. We need solidarity.
Yeah.
So when people approach us with all the answers, not that you don't, I mean, there are some answers you kind of have to land on, but all answers are essentially, for me, all answers are temporary unless it's the answer of love. All other answers are, you can't pin them down. I mean, things change, life changes, stuff changes. Love doesn't. It has the ability to contain all of that. So yeah, I've noticed I've just gravitated more over the last 10 years of my life, people who are comfortable with solidarity more than solutions, and that's been freeing for me. And oh, by the way, it also critiques me and how I approach people too. I want to be that person who offers the solidarity over against the solutions, and that's not always easy to do for someone who's spent his whole life preaching, telling other people, writing books, presenting. You're put in a position a lot to be the expert. So I have to check myself a lot, but I'm thankful for that whole process.
So I would love for you to talk a little bit about Haiti, because I feel like that's been a big part of your life, because it was a big part of Quincy's life, and then you went back, and I just want you to touch on that, because I think that's a really cool part of the story.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So we have a nonprofit called lovehaiti.org, and Quincy had been to Haiti. She only went one time, but had an amazing trip. Had planned to go back, but actually got stuck in New York in a snowstorm. So the second time they tried going back, it didn't work. And then over New Year's, the New Year's that she died, there was actually a group of students that had gone back to Haiti, and she had decided not to go that year. She was saving money for her senior nursing trip, which is a tradition at their school. So after she died, among other things, we were just trying to figure out what else we could do to honor her, but also, to be really honest, we'll try to continue to process our own grief. And we pretty quickly landed on the idea of going down to where they had been. If some of the listeners know, but Haiti is now particularly, it's really a train wreck. It was bad back then. It was even worse. There are no roads outside of Port-au-Prince. So the area where she went and where we've been going now for years, it's only like 80 miles from Port-au-Prince, but it's about an 8 or 9 hour SUV ride, because you're going through dried up riverbed, Salzit Mountains, and it's crazy. Like, it's just a crazy journey. So we started going down there with the ideal, and we invited people from the beginning. We didn't want to tell them what we wanted to do, but we were inviting them into the journey. Like, if you would like us to help, we could partner with you. But one of the ideas we had from the beginning was to build a soccer field, particularly in the area that she went, because in rural Haiti, girls playing soccer is unpopular. So the week she was there, she loved to tell the story about how they were impressed that, she could play. And she played with the boys all week. We thought that was a pretty cool idea. And we went down that first summer. They asked the community if they liked the idea, and they did. So initially we built a soccer field, but then it was one thing led to another. We started getting involved with healthcare. We started getting involved with education. We've done adult creation things over the years. We've done a lot of stepping in when they've had, because Haiti, it's unbelievable how unlucky they've been. They've been hit with so many different storms and things over the years. So multiple times we've stepped in and provided, money to help farmers sow new seed and all kinds of stuff like that. But our main thing now is education and healthcare. We have 2 schools. In fact, we just started school this week. I was just on the phone last week with part of the school board of one of the communities. I don't have numbers yet, but I think we're going to have 700 kids in each of the schools total.
Wow.
And 10 years ago, there was no school in either community. And we have over 20 teachers and administrative people. We have a full-time nurse that goes to Southeast Haiti to a couple of different communities. We have another part-time nurse and a part-time doctor. So all of that has been, well, on the one hand, it's all been really, really hard, and it's taken
Yeah.
a lot of energy. And I, of course, have never made any money from it. On the other hand, it's been beyond, like, there really aren't any words to express how great it's been to be a part of all of this and a part of these people's lives. We've been down there many times now. My oldest son in particular has gone down. He's gone down a ton of times and speaks the language and actually operated as our executive director for a while. But the last 3 years, long story short, it's just gotten, it's untenable. We can't send people down there because it's too dangerous. And so that all shifted. He's still on the board involved, but we've been in people's homes. We've been able at times to fly them here. Unfortunately, right now, because the political climate, that's not possible. So it's just turned into a really great, complex, complicated, messy, beautiful, what your friends say, excruciatingly beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're I guess we're going to be doing it the rest of our lives. There are days when I'm like, what did I get myself into? But then, of course, most of the time, I'm just really grateful to play a small role in all of it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure for you, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like it's something that Quincy can be all wrapped up in a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, yeah, for sure. It's really funny how these things play out. So when we first went down that first summer, my oldest would have been 18, and he's a relational, real intelligent, and very aware of potential inequities that can happen when the affluent global north kind of swarms into a community like that.
Right.
We've seen that play out a lot in Haiti, but also in other instances, but certainly in Haiti. And so it's funny. So my oldest, my boy, his name is Shay, and Shay was saying, even on that very first trip, he was like, "Dad, why are we doing this? Are we doing this for Quincy? Are we doing this for us? Are we doing this for the people?" And it's funny at the time. I was like, "Dude, I don't know. I'm just trying
Yeah.
to, process the pain." But I will say, he was so relentless with his question and the way he framed it, that it really shaped the way we did this there and have been doing it. And so all along, we've been really intentional about telling folks and sharing with the Haitians, like, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're not here to build stuff that you're not going to need, which we've seen multiple times. We're not here to raise money to the degree that it affects the local economy, which we've seen multiple times. We
Uh-huh.
want to empower the people. And even with the school, like, these are all partnership things. And with healthcare, we're not providing everything just for free. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why all that is what it is. But yes, to answer your question, or I don't even know if you asked a question, but to respond to what you were saying, it certainly is a way for Quincy to be involved in all that. But partly because of my boy, which I'm really thankful for, and partly because ultimately, these are the people that are being affected. Like, we're also
Yeah.
intentional about trying not to make it about her.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I just think it's like those are the people that she fell in love with. And so
Oh, I
that
know.
makes
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
that makes you fall in love with them too, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and they fell in love with her.
No, I totally understand that. I have a Guatemalan foster son, and
Yeah.
that it yeah, the Guatemalan community that he's from, it's really you see videos and they're all just wearing donated t-shirts from the United States, and all the money comes from people that families send money down. It's just, there's like locally, they're not doing anything that way. And it's just so sad. Like, his family would make shirts, and that's what he did before he came here, is he did that. But when the U.S. just donates free T-shirts all the time, then you can't make your living sewing shirts anymore. And it's really not, it is this kind of savior mentality that we have that is not saving anybody when you do it like that. I see it very much firsthand. Valeriano's brother now, he wants to go and build a really fancy house with all the money that he made in the United States that no one will ever live in. Like that is making no sense to me. So
Yeah.
I completely see where it come from there, because it's a balance that you have to want to help them be able to help themselves and build their own community up, and not have it be a community built on just donations, and because those donations go away and then it's done. Yeah.
Yes, so that's a part of it. Another part of it is challenging the American mindset of, oh, we're going to go do this. And you mentioned the savior complex, and trying to get Americans involved in relationships with people, and especially trying to take the economics out of it as much as possible, so that it's not a transactional thing. It's a relational thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is really challenging for people to understand that. And unfortunately, like, there's a downside sometimes to having wealth. By the way, not that I personally feel like I'm a wealthy person, like, it's all contextual, but there's a downside to being a nation that has wealth. And one of them is, and you and I have seen this, obviously, in these kind of situations, we tend to treat people, and I'm implicated in it as well, as less than, and then we want to give them something. Well, what they need, again, it's not solutions, it's solidarity.
Yeah.
So the move is, of course, you give money when there's emergencies, and of course, I think it's important to have a healthy life, to be able to build the discipline of living a life economically. But more than anything, what these people need is just consistent showing up, friendship, relationship. And by the way, that's what I need too. Like, it's not only damaging it's not only damaging to them just to give money and then leave. That's damaging to me as well. So it's challenging, because it would be easier to raise it is easier to raise money back here for some big project that we want to do, versus asking people just to get involved in Haitian children's lives. It's complicated for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I do love that you made that soccer field, because that's going to bring a lot of joy to a lot of kiddos.
Yep. There's been a lot of really beautiful things that have happened there for sure.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So any other parting words that you wanted to say before we...
Oh my word. There's so many things we could talk about. So many good topics that were brought up. So no, just thanks for having me on. Thanks for reading the book, and hopefully it'll help other people.
I will really recommend, I strongly recommend you go out and get that book, because it really is beautiful. And I do think, to all of your friends that may feel like they're wanting to help solve your problems for you, might be a nice gift, this book, because I do think it makes us feel more comfortable with the silence and comfortable in those blank spaces. So thank you again, Jonathon. Thank you for sharing Quincy with us and your kind of transformative journey that you're on.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation, or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy at andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.